Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. My guest today is Justin Croxton, the CEO of Propellant Media, a digital advertising and geofencing marketing company. He has over 10 years of marketing experience and a deep understanding of digital strategies. Propellant Media has grown exponentially over the 6 years since it was formed to an 8-figure agency today. Having processes and full funnel advertising, they leverage for themselves, producing countless leads daily for the agency, ranging from inbound marketing to programmatic display and to paid media and also paid search. It's going to be a really interesting discussion today. I also come from the digital marketing world, so I love nerding out on this stuff. Justin, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to the show.
What's going on, my man? It's a
I really
pleasure.
appreciate you joining me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
First of all, I got to tell you, I love the name, right? I was kicking myself this morning as I was reading up on your stuff. Like, why didn't I come up with that name? Right. Because that is just one of those quintessential great names that just fits and it just makes sense,
Yeah.
especially for a marketing team.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about who you are and what makes you so amazing.
Sure. Well, so how do I say, where do I start? So I won't start with my family, but I am married. I got a little one. We live here in Atlanta, Georgia. But I'll talk a little bit about how I got into digital. So I went to Stern School of Business in New York. And that was around the same time when I was really interested in getting into digital marketing. A lot of my classmates were focused on consulting and finance jobs and what have you. I started my own one-man shop at one point, did that for a couple years, moved down to Atlanta, larger agency with a larger group of guys. Is that right? Larger? Yeah, larger group of guys. And it was tough the first couple years. You know, when you're an agency owner, you're just trying to be scrappy, as many of the other folks out there may be experiencing. You're trying to, build relationships and grow your business. But one of the things that was distinct about us and myself is I said, hey guys, we really need to focus on this one area of geofencing advertising. There's not a lot of people playing in the space. And, as you know, there's just so many agencies that already do paid search, SEO, now Facebook, website design, can't really be distinct from those areas. So let's lead with geofencing. And so with that with that direction that I gave and a lot of the execution that we did for ourselves, that's really how we grew. And, we've never really looked back. I mean, we certainly do a lot of other stuff, obviously, but that's sort of been the linchpin to our growth.
One of the things I found interesting, especially about the digital marketing space, is just how easy it is to break into it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, especially now, if you go on YouTube, on the university YouTube, I call it, right? You can look up how to start a SaaS agency, software as a service, how to create it, how to get customers right away. And there is so much noise. There's so much noise in that space. And there are all these people kind of telling you what to do. And one of the things I found, throughout my journey was that a lot of the tools, they tend to have half-lives to them, right? They don't necessarily work forever. Everyone got all excited about MySpace. Well, guess what? Nobody really talks about that anymore. And now Facebook comes along, and Facebook grows to be so big that it can't really show in the news feed all of the stuff. So they had to get creative with how they're going to show, like paid advertising and suggested feeds and all that. And it really, changed the experience from what you and I have experienced, as we're coming up in this versus, what the reality is now.
Mm-hmm.
So now talking about the, geofencing, right? I find that subject intensely fascinating. Why?
Yeah.
Because it was one time we were driving down the street and my girl said that they were hungry. So I told them, well, go look for a sushi restaurant or something along the way. Right. And they directed me to some sushi restaurant that was about a mile up the road. But I happened to spy out of the corner of my eye, we just passed another sushi restaurant. Right. And I'm like, why didn't you suggest that one? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
no,
Mm-hmm.
like it wasn't on my list. It didn't show on my phone.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Bro, missed opportunity, right?
Right.
And what happens is that, you see these examples all over the place, right? When you are talking to clients and when you were going through that soul searching of figuring out, where you want to lead, how easy or how hard was it for you to pivot and to niche down into just that smaller playing field instead of
Yeah.
just going far and wide and developing a website and writing content and slinging paid ads? How did that look to
Yeah.
you guys?
Well, I won't say it was easy or hard, but I will say that the decision was clear as we started to get clients and customers that expressed an interest in it. And so, one of the things that I always try to tell people is, if you have experience in a particular area, like you're in education and you have a lot of education clients, or you've been in the higher education space, for example, and it's easy, and you've been in marketing, so naturally it's easy for you to go after many clients in that space. You can grow an agency, relatively quickly and offer a lot of different services. But for us, and for myself, even to an extent, we had experience in some education, healthcare, but it was either niche down at the industry level, which I kind of didn't want to do, thinking about the long term, growth of the agency, or niche down into a particular area. And when we both saw that there was demand for programmatic display and geofencing, and that could still be sort of the get in with a client to expand our services beyond that, it really wasn't that difficult of a decision, particularly as we started making money. Quite honestly, no pun intended, we put more fuel or more propellant to the fire, or gasoline, if you will, to the fire. And at that stage, we just continued to grow. And then, of course, beyond just the actual service itself, was the solution in the problem that it solves, which is targeting someone based on their physical location, the places that they go. When you're on some of these other platforms like Google Display Network, if you're on Facebook, the smallest you can really get is down to a 1 mile radius. You can't get smaller than that. But what if you're a car dealership and you want to target people who are in market looking to buy a car? Yes, you can reach people who are doing a search, but if you're reaching someone who is literally in market, best way to do that is by geofencing just their physical location when they go to those other car dealership locations. And all the way down to the contours of a building. I'm not talking about just the zip code targeting either. So it was both the practicality of the application itself, and then the growth potential that we saw. We put those together and felt like this would be a great way for us to differentiate our organization and then expand beyond that at that stage.
It's really interesting that you bring that up, because one of the things I found was that, like I had a client, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago, was asking me about geofencing advertising.
Mhm.
And at the time, I was just the reason why it came on their radar is that their local radio station was selling it, and I was looking at the markup for what they were selling it for, and it just seemed like a really, really high price for what you were getting. Right? It
Mhm.
was, they wanted like a $5,000 a month buy-in, and it was just, I don't know, it just seemed kind of ludicrous, especially to
Yeah.
target, alternative health studios and
Yeah.
functional medicine places in Colorado. And it's like,
Yeah.
like, dude, come
Yeah.
on. Like,
Yeah.
it's not all that, right? So,
Yeah.
I
I
advise
agree.
her not to do it, right?
Yeah.
Where do you see some of the best applications of geofencing? And also, what would you say are like some of the worst? Like what would you say are some of the scenarios where you'd be like, hey, something, this isn't really going to work for you?
Yeah. I'll start with the worst and I'll go to the best. So I wouldn't use geofencing for, like, if you are an e-commerce store. I really kind of stray away from that. There may be a couple instances, but if you got to remember that geofencing is really sort of top, middle of funnel awareness building and engagement. It's not always about generating leads, except for certain industries. Like, say, for example, if you're a car dealership and someone's like really hot, right? I'm like in market looking to buy a car. You're trying to steal that traffic back to your car dealership. It's a little different, if that makes sense. So usually I stray away from things like maybe a little bit of technology, like SaaS, and in tech, and also e-commerce are the ones that I kind of stray away from. But everywhere else is fair game. I mean, great example, we do event targeting for B2B brands that are presenting at conferences or going to be at a conference, or if you're a car dealership, or if you're a brick and mortar retail location, you want to be able to measure the people who saw or clicked on your ads from those geofencing locations and came back to your storefront. We can measure that. That provides some level of attribution modeling within your media planning infrastructure, if you will. We do it also for higher education. So let's say, for example, you're an undergraduate institution, you want to raise awareness to people that are taking the SAT or ACTs. You can get those locations where students are taking those tests and geofence those locations as well. So that's another great example. I already mentioned car dealerships. We have tons of restaurants, retail physical storefronts. We have some people that don't have a physical storefront, but they just want to raise awareness. And the last point that I'll make is that geofencing can be its own penicillin, but it shouldn't be. Like, it's from a marketing perspective, it needs to be part of your marketing plan. It's just like you're not just going to do Google Ads by itself, right? You're going to throw in some retargeting. You're going to throw in some site retargeting on the Facebook side, Instagram side. Maybe you got a video. You're going to do a little bit of YouTube. You're trying to push those people from multiple different places to increase the effectiveness of your overall marketing plan. And that's usually what we tell people. But there's many different applications, and the sky's the limit with programmatic and specifically geofencing advertising, geofencing marketing.
I love how you brought up the notion of cost and where this particular type of advertising fits in with your overall budget. One of the things that I usually fight with, and these are really people, like I call them tire kickers, right? The ones that call me up, well, what's the cheapest I can be on Google for? And that for me is an instant X. It's an instant. Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's not going to work. You're not really that client type thing. But really what needs to happen here is that you not only as a business need to figure out what your entire marketing budget is, what I call the big number. How much can you spend on your marketing all in, for your SEO guy, for your paid ads guy, for the person that writes your blog post, and utilizing all this tech and not break a sweat at the end of the month. Right.
Yeah.
That really seems to be the big thing. And then it really comes down to, if they shoot you a number, I can spend $5,000 a month. Okay, great. Now we have something to work with. Now let's figure out how we can utilize all of these different tools in order to make it happen.
Yeah.
How do you help people then through these budgets and figuring out what is the best use of their marketing dollar in order to get the best bang for their buck as they're going through this process?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I love that one. There are many times when, clients will come to us, they'll say, what should I spend? And my retort back to them is, oh, well, what are you currently spending in general? And so let's kind of go back to the, media planning basics 101, right? You think a top of funnel, middle, bottom of funnel is typically going to be your Google ads, maybe Facebook, site retargeting. That's on the lower funnel, depending on the industry. Geofencing, maybe some Google display, keyword contextual, search retargeting, those kind of things might be in the middle of the funnel. Top of funnel might be, no one even knows your brand. So it's like TV, radio, print, maybe there's some display that's out there, programmatic display, it's top of funnel where you just want to, let people know within your target audience that you guys exist. I always tell people, try to put most of your money towards the lower funnel stuff and start to layer in the other things that's going to continue to feed people down that funnel, essentially. So if we were taking an even number, let's say 10 grand, maybe you're going to put 4 or 5 of that towards, Google ads, another 3 towards, Facebook, maybe another 500 to 1,000 towards site retargeting, and maybe another, 2,000, 3,000, maybe even 4,000 towards geofencing and programmatic display. That's sort of the way that I look at it. I don't tell folks to say, hey, let's just do all top of funnel. Of course not. No, we're business is about profit, making money. So put more of your money towards people who are likely to be in market looking to buy your products. Try to find that audience that has the highest intent and find ways to hit them in multiple different arenas. And that's what we're trying to accomplish.
So when you're starting out, I assume that with that in the geofencing market, you also need to do a fair amount of optimization as well,
Yes.
because some of your assumptions, where you start out the project may not necessarily be the correct ones, right? How do
Yes.
you compensate and correct for that?
Yeah, good question. So a number of times what we'll see, and a great example is a client will give us like 30 locations. So, yeah, I want to target these 30 locations. We'll say, okay, great. We'll target those 30 locations. We have 2 or 3 different ad sizes that we're not ad sizes, but ads that we're going to use from a split testing perspective. We're 2 weeks in and we realize that these locations don't seem to really be, pulling weight, or maybe we're a full month in, when we notice that a few locations have been driven walk-in conversions. And so as we're consulting with a client, we'll say, hey, we want to remove these locations. We see that it performs really well on these types of devices like mobile and desktop, but maybe not so much tablet, for example. So we may do that. We may blacklist certain mobile apps and websites. That's another great way that we go about it as well. And we got some other really sophisticated things that we've done. Like, we can also take a geofencing audience and push that audience over into Facebook and Instagram, meaning not just someone who clicked on your ad, but just someone who saw the ad programmatically. We can push that audience over into Facebook. So that's another optimization we may do for clients from time to time. So the sky's the limit from an optimization perspective. Those are the types of executables that we typically would do for a brand or for an agency, because we actually do white label to a number of agencies out there as well. But that's usually sort of our process and how we make the campaigns perform better to improve engagement, increase walk-ins, ultimately drive revenues for a brand.
So what's interesting about this is that when you're putting together that marketing mix, just those different layers and how things are going to interact, like you really do need to have a plan for all of them, both individually and how they are working together as a group, right?
Yeah, correct. Correct.
Yeah,
A lot of times we'll even look at, people that have done more branded searches, for example, in Google as a result of the geofencing or programmatic that you might have been doing. Like, it's all part of the media omni-channel media plan.
amazing. Can you please walk us through a case study? If maybe you don't need to name names, but just walk us through how a client, comes to you and sort of analyze their needs and we're able to swing it out of the park for them,
Yeah,
using
totally.
some of these tactics.
Yeah, there's just kind of off the cuff. There's one that comes to mind. I won't tell the client name, but they are a pretty sizable regional developer, real estate development company. They have offices throughout the country, and part of what they wanted to do is they were looking to run both a geofencing campaign as well as an over-the-top connected TV advertising campaign. For those who don't know, OTT stands for over-the-top connected TV. So targeting people on streaming apps and websites, streaming apps such as Roku, Amazon Fire Sticks of the world, just to be clear. And they wanted to leverage the geofencing with display ads, pre-roll video, and also the OTT. So we're kind of combining both. So we have this big plan of programmatic that we're doing for them. And of course, they had developments that were sort of their competitors within each of their development cities, if that makes sense. So you may have like their own development that's here, but then they have competitors throughout. And those competitor developments they're being developed, right? So we would build virtual fences around those locations. We do that across the entire country. And part of what we were able to do is measure the folks from the other developments that saw or clicked on their ads, or may have seen one of their connected TV video spots, and then came back to their physical location. It's by far, one of the better campaigns that we've ran, because they're also doing Google ads and they're also doing Facebook as well. We weren't really controlling that component of it, but we're able to sort of combine everything into, a talking narrative of, okay, these are with live folks who have seen your ads and came back to your physical location. Like, we have reporting that kind of shows that, like, there is an influence, there is an impact. And if you go to our site, we actually use it we actually use it as one of our reports that we use. Like, a lot of clients say, well, what does your reporting look like? And that's actually the one that we share. because it was just a great case study. It was a great example of how you develop strategy for that type of a campaign, all the way down to how you're going to report on it so you can make really good decisions from an optimization perspective. And so if you're a real estate developer, I know I didn't say real estate, but you're a real estate developer, geofencing, OTT advertising is fantastic for that space.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really enlightening. One of the things I've noticed, I tell the story as a joke. We just moved into this house less than a year ago, and before we moved in here, we were just a Netflix family, Netflix and Amazon Prime. We didn't pay for cable, just internet, right?
Yeah.
But now in this new place that we're in, it was cheaper to have cable plus internet. Right now,
Yes.
my wife is not from this country, right? So she just feasted on the opportunity to watch all these commercials, right? She's like, well, how else am I supposed to the brands getting to the culture and
Sure.
all that stuff, right? And I'm
Sure.
just rolling my eyes like, God, if I have to watch another commercial, I mean, we just got conditioned for the past 10 years not to watch any of this, right?
Sure. Sure.
Then lo and behold, we start seeing all these, and you can almost tell which ones are the OTT commercials and which ones are the network commercials and which ones are that are
Yeah.
coming at you from all these different directions. And I'm just like,
Sure.
see, that's how they influenced you. That's how they did this.
Yeah.
We joke
Yeah.
about it, right? Until finally last week, I just asked her like, okay, are you done watching commercials? Can we go back to Netflix now? You know,
So funny.
and she's just like, yeah, I'm getting there because they just repeat, these sometimes it's the same four commercials on blast, for the whole night, depending on the channel. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I find that whole aspect of advertising, very interesting because it has to do with inventory, has to do with budget, that the client is, but it also has to do with some of the great work that you guys are doing, right?
Yeah.
Really tying that all together to make a cohesive message,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
think that's where the genius really fits in. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that too.
Justin, where can people find you online, and how can they reach out to you directly if they want to learn more?
Yeah, I mean, the best way to go is go to propellant.media, www.propellant.media. You'll find us. We do our own advertising. So don't click on the ad at the very top, maybe the organic listings. And to get in contact with me directly, if you go to propellant.media, you'll find me or find our team at some capacity. We have a sales team, we have an account management team, we have an ad ops team. We have two offices, one here in Atlanta and also in Charlotte, North Carolina as well. And the one thing that I like to tell folks is when you go to the site, it's pretty robust, but it brings a lot of value to folks. Like we have a ton of good content, ebooks, webinars that we've done, calculators, even tools of that sorts. And so, use it as just that, as a means to sort of elevate your consciousness in the world of marketing and geofencing and OTT advertising. And so, if you go there, I think you'll gain some value, but just go to propellant.media and you'll be in a good space.
Amazing. Justin, thank you for joining me today. It's been a
Yeah,
lot
me
of
too.
fun.
Yeah.
I love talking about this stuff. We can go on forever, but
Yeah,
we're
me
going to cut
too.
it short.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Jeff.